You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Well, it wasn't going to be easy. It's Nick Alberga Carter Hutton, the Monday edition of Leafs Morning Take, presented by Bet365. Our final show here from Florida. I guess we're in my hotel room this time, but getting you set, looking ahead as well to Game 5, recapping Game 4. What's going on, Huts?
I'm doing well, buddy. A little bit hungover from that game. That one stings. You know, you going up 2 and losing that. But if we said right now it'd be 2-2 coming home with 2 games at home, you know, if it goes that far, having the home ice advantage. But you got to like it. But lots to like, lots to hate. I don't know. We got lots to break down today, my man.
Yeah, you're right. And I think when you look back at last night, there is like a hollow feeling. There is sort of a hungover feeling, even though we didn't drink, of course, at least on this side of the glass. And I thought it was your signature Florida Panthers performance in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sometimes you have to credit the opponent. It is a game of adjustments in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think I tipped my cap to the Panthers last night.
Yeah, I think you have to, right? I think they played a very good game at home. And again, I think things get off kiltered early with the penalties in the game, kind of set the tone for the game. But that being said, did we think this team was just going to go away easy? You know what I mean? It's just so fragile, right? Like obviously the Marchand winner set the tone for a 2-1 series lead, and they came out and they just swarmed them last night. It was tough, and they couldn't capitalize on their chances. It was rare. They didn't have a lot of them. I thought Joseph Woll, I thought both goalies were great. It was one of those games where he tried to steal one, but that being said, not done yet. It's 2-2. Still got lots of life.
It's exactly it. Our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. As you all know, want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. But it's kind of fascinating, too, when you look at the Stanley Cup playoffs and just the body of work and the process and how it's extremely difficult, Huts, to bring it every damn night. That's why we don't see dominant performances where teams go 16-0. I think a lot of it is about coaching. I think coaching is big this time of year. And I think adjustments, like that's a big word I would use heading into Game 5 Wednesday night.
Yeah, I think so too, right? And that's where the change comes in, right? You talk about getting the matchup you need and making some adjustments because it is and I think sometimes it's like self-scouting. Something that I did, I remember when I think it was my first or second year in the NHL and I was just having a few struggles. I think I lost 3 shootouts in a row and it was like I kept getting beat 5-hole and it was like frustrating. And then my goalie coach at the time, Ben Vanderklok, we actually went for like a scout of myself, where normally you're always like scouting shooters and doing that. And I think sometimes you have to do this as a team where, you know, how are you going to adjust to what they do, right? You got to look at the Toronto Maple Leafs as Craig Berube does and be like, this is where our holes are. This is where they're exploiting us and find ways to evolve the game. And I think that's something for me throughout my career. You got to look in the mirror. You have to be constantly criticizing yourself and hard on yourself and getting better. Because if not, you're going to get stale and teams are going to adapt and beat you every single time.
I thought it was fascinating too by Craig Berube's post-game comments, and I was in the room about potential lineup changes. I'm not sure I'm at that point where I'm ready to insert a David Kampf who hasn't played in months or a Nick Robertson. I think sometimes you got to stay the course, and maybe that's gamesmanship. I've been so intrigued with that from both sides of the spectrum. Even Paul Maurice, the way he handled the question about the Domi hit late in the game, or Craig Berube, just the calmness that he brings to the table. I think this makes this series really, really good is the 2 guys behind the bench too, no?
Yeah, I do. I just like such veterans, right? And they know they're playing a game of chess too. And again, I think when Berube says that, he's just trying to set the table. It's funny what goes on. You know, maybe it's almost outside, but I feel like nobody really falls for the fact. Everyone is scouted. They know what they're going to get. But that being said, I can't see any lineup changes make. Like, it hasn't been that bad. You know, it hasn't been like they've played a game where you're just like, oh my goodness, that was gross. You need to get someone out. If it's not injury, if it's not like fatigue, you know, Max Pacioretty would be the only one that I worry about just because of, you know, where he's coming from in his injury history. But he's looked pretty good. And, you know, that being said, they just didn't find the back of the net. And this team isn't just going to lie down and be knocked out of the playoffs, right? They've been in the mix for so long. So I think both coaches are always great for a few quotes in this one.
Huts, what's going on with the goaltenders in the Stanley Cup playoffs in general? Not just this series. not just this series. Like, I know Stolarz is not playing, and Joseph Woll we're going to get to, I thought was phenomenal in keeping the Maple Leafs in Game 4. But across the league, it's like, here we go again, the most important time of the year, and a lot of teams have no clue who's going to show up to play for them, man.
I know, it's wild. Been tough, right? I think you look at the way Aiden Hill's played, it's been ugly to say. You know, I think Stuart Skinner wasn't good the other night. Hellebuck, you know, he's just been Jekyll and Hyde in the second round too. Even yesterday, I didn't think he was great. I guess shooting one in on himself. I didn't like that goal yesterday, and then Calvin Pickard gets hurt. I don't know if that was his knee or his ankle. Looked like he fell on him. I know he played through it. It's good. And Skinner's just been the story of the playoff, in my opinion. And then you come to this series where I think yesterday it was 2 great goalie performances on different ends of the spectrum, in my opinion, because I don't think Bobrovsky was as busy, but at key times was very good. And I think late, the one for me was late where we have a group chat with Leafs Nation, and I was talking about where Nyes has the open net off a broken play. He kind of gets caught outside his crease, and he's on his backhand. I know it's a jam play, but it's got to be up in the other half of the net. He almost shoots it back into him because that one, as the breakaway, Nyes gets the breakaway. Breakaway's a coin flip for me because he has lots of time. He can set himself. He's right with him. But that one on that broken play on the backhand, he's out of position. That is like a 75% chance you're scoring on that one. So that one stings because the opportunities were far and, they just couldn't really generate much. And again, there was a chance in the third period. We were talking shutout, right? We were trying to jinx him. We were all over it. He made a glove save on Domi where it just looked way too easy. He just looked so dialed in and poised where earlier in the games, early in the series, I didn't think he had that same poise and composure. So that's a scary thing because we know what he did to them 2 years ago in this series. So,
I mean, that's exactly it. And I think the fact that the Leafs had played 3 games in the series, had scored 13 goals on 81 shots on Sergei Bobrovsky, you have to be feeling really, really good. But you also know that there's probably that game coming. And I think it happened in game 4, but I'd probably put more emphasis on Florida defensively than I would Sergei Bobrovsky. You just talked about the chances. There was the Matthews one as well, where he tried to go shelf and a good glove, but you can count on one hand, I would say, the high danger opportunities. And again, it's just always the same shit, man. Matthew Nyes always finds a way to try and make a difference, gets the breakaway, gets the opportunity in the slot. I couldn't agree more with you. I thought that was the best probable chance the Maple Leafs had. They had a couple breakaways, but the probability of putting that in is very, very high. And I thought Bob was up to the task. And just for Nyes to be able to get himself in positions to make a difference, to try and score a goal, I think you can't say that about some other guys on that roster who make a lot more money, Huts.
I agree too. And it seems like it's consistently we're talking about Nyes, and not to our surprise though, right? Like I think coming into this playoffs, he was kind of the X factor. We thought, come playoff time, there's a few key pieces, but up front, because of his big body, because he can get to the net, he's done a really, really great job. But that being said, you got these guys making tons of dough. Matthews can't score, Marner, these guys have to be big game performance and not there. I know Matthews obviously is struggling. We talked about that a bit last night on that Luosterainen penalty. When he gets up, it's like the way he holds his arm and the way he gets up, it doesn't look good, but man, you're in the lineup. You have to score. You have to find a way to make a difference. And it's hard when your best player is not doing it for you.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, Auston Matthews is hurt. Again, I've been saying this all weekend long on the show. You don't score 69 goals in the NHL without being an absolute stud at scoring. And precision has been the name of the game with Auston Matthews. Just every shot he takes, he misses the net or he just doesn't hit his mark. And it's happened a couple times where he has this year, but it's abundantly clear, at least in my mind, something is cooking there. Something is going on. I mean, they played 10 playoff games. He has 2 goals. That is a very, very rough clip. And it's not like the opponent is playing stifling D. There's been opportunities for one-timers and opportunities like that command sort of an Auston Matthews moment. It just hasn't happened. And certainly something we're going to monitor moving forward in this series, but also looking forward, Huts, to Wednesday night, Game 5 happening at Scotiabank Arena. Again, the team's going to be over at Greta Bar. The watch party has been a lot of fun throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs. It'll continue with the pregame. We'll have post-game festivities with Zach Phillips. Producer Vic's going to be on location. And looking forward in general, fly home later today to getting back to Toronto and taking care of business here on Wednesday night in Toronto.
Yeah, and there's got to be some good vibes too, right? You're going home to a place where you just won 2. The energy's high, and I think when we left Scotiabank in Game 2, that was a ruckus crowd, and it was fun, and it was, get that home ice vibes going. So that being said, it's not done yet, like by any means. It feels that way in a sense, right? But they just held court. They held court at home, which is the way it is. And if you just don't lose at home, you're going to win a playoff series. So it's going to be a battle. There's going to be adjustments inside that. But at the end of the day, I think they just need to be more direct and make it harder. There needs to be more net front traffic. There needs to be tips. And it's not easy. It's getting there first. And because this D, like you talked about, I think their D did such a good job of protecting the house. There wasn't a ton of danger. And that being said, Joseph Wall looks like he's in a rhythm. And usually when he gets going, I think he stays in motion in the right direction here.
And I thought the hope was that, hey, Wallsy's playing his game. Let's have like a Joseph Wall legacy game where you just out goalie the other team and steal the game. But unfortunately, the offense didn't have much going. And again, Florida's defense, I think, deserves a lot of credit. They were stifling, kept the Leafs to the outside. They were physical. I think they're starting a bit to wear down Toronto's back end, namely Chris Tanev. It's every shift, bang, bang, bang. And the Leafs are doing, to a degree, the same thing with Florida. But that is the best part about a Stanley Cup playoff series, is the blows. And for those of you who are not big believers in being physical, for me at least, I think it plays a toll in a series, man. At the very least, it makes the guy second guess when he goes back for a puck, no?
100%. And it might not be game one. It might not be the first hit or the 10th hit or the 20th hit, but at some point, he gets rushed on a little play because of fatigue, because he's where he's at, and he turns that puck over. And next thing you know, it ends up in your back of the net. And that's something that's so important, right? They highlighted that in the cast on the telecast last night about just like retrievals on the wall and picking up pucks, because how Florida likes to rim that puck to the far side and have two guys coming with pressure that are hounding their D-man. So it is tricky. It is important. And that's where you talk about a goalie being able to set the puck and handle the puck. We've seen the difference that a goaltender makes that handles the puck in retrievals and getting an easy exit. It's not that first pass, it's that second pass where you eliminate that check. And it's so important over a 7-game series when you have guys like McCabe and Tanev who already put on so many miles blocking shots, being physical. If you can protect them from that, the wear and tear, it's going to go a long way come down the stretch here.
Speaking of a long way, the Now We Go campaign continues, and it's been a great jaunt for us the last couple of weeks. Nationgear.ca, where you can pick up your Now We Go t-shirt, probably in time for Game 5, certainly in time for Game 6 coming up on Friday night back here in Sunrise. But at nationgear.ca, where you can do that, we got 3 different colors. We got white, we got black, and the navy blue one, which I'm sporting under this one of one Leafs When He Takes sweatshirt, by the way. You can't even get it, Huts.
That's it, baby. Custom made, Just
yes.
For the big dog, the big host.
Exactly. Exactly. At the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs When You Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to check out the LeafsNation.com. The team over there has been doing a great job all postseason long. Have you covered? An extra day of rest is something to monitor moving forward. I know we can say the Panthers have played a lot of hockey the last couple of years, so maybe it's in favor of them. But from my perspective, I bleed the blue and white, and I think about Austin Matthews. Doesn't take the morning skate yesterday. Any extra day to keep that guy off the ice and rested, and I don't know, whatever he does at home, plays Xbox or PS5, I'm into that type of conversation. I just want this guy as fresh as possible for puck drop coming up on Wednesday night at Scotiabank Arena. Your motorhome or travel trailer isn't just for getaways. It's a moneymaker on wheels. Most RVs sit parked in the driveway. With RV Easy, you can rent out your motorhome or travel trailer and earn over $20,000 this year. Founded and owned and operated by Canadians, RV Easy takes care of everything, including full insurance coverage provided for every rental. And best of all, you choose when to rent and set your own pricing. List your RV for free today at RVEZY.com. That's RVEZY.com. RV Easy, rent your RV, make money easy. So it was your prototypical night, I think, for a guy like Carter Hutton. The goaltending, I thought was great. Specifically Joseph Woll. Like, they just needed an effort like that, considering what we had seen earlier on in the series, Huts.
Yeah, I think he knew it was coming, right? Coming off Game 3, I don't think he was great. I thought he was solid. I thought he made a lot of good saves. I thought he need to be better, and he was. That's a helpless feeling. I've been in that situation before where you are just dialed in. You're playing so good, and your team just can't generate. But the best part about Joseph Woll is I don't think anything ever he seems so unflappable. Like, he just kind of is focused, and no matter what the game is going, and I feel like his mental standpoint is so good, which is great, right? Because if you had a more emotional player, a younger guy like that, now you just lost 2 straight. There's the pressures on you. Stolarz was the guy you're thrown in this situation. So for me, I think him coming home now is going to be important, right? To stay with that game and find the rhythm. And again, there's a lot of good things to take away from that game and the series. And now you're back on home ice. And I think that is going to be very powerful for this Toronto team.
I cannot stand the doom and gloom that I see on social media. It's like people expected the Florida Panthers just to lay down and be like, you know what, Toronto, now's your time. We'll give you 4 games. We'll pack it up. We'll head to the beach for the offseason. We all knew, like, in deep down inside here in Leafs Nation, we all knew this is going to be a battle of a series. And maybe you get that hope and expectation. You win the first 2 games and every bounce is going your way. But I expected a bounce back of sorts from the Florida Panthers. By far, I thought Game 4 was their best game of the series. Toronto had a chance to steal Game 3 and win Game 3, and they're pretty damn good in Game 3. They blew 2 2-goal leads in that game, 2-0 and 3-1. But to not think that the Florida Panthers would give a shot back to you, I think it's crazy. And I think it comes full circle too, and I know it's revisionist thinking, but if I were to give you the option of being 2-2 4 games into this series against the Panthers. Would you take it before the series, Huts?
For sure. For sure. Even just the way it's gone down, I think that's the biggest struggle with people is the fact they were up 2-0, the fact they were up 3-1, the fact that it went to overtime in game 3 and it was a coin flip and it was just this lucky goal, hits off a guy, flips in where, they had a few chances to win it in overtime. So that's where I think people, start to go down that negative trail, right? But we saw this in the first series. How many people, when it went to game 6 against Ottawa, were like, oh, this team's going to blow it again. They're soft, blah, blah. They find a way to win. Like there's no easy games right now in the NHL. So I think you take this right now and you process it. And the best part about this, in my opinion, Nick, is Craig Berube been building toward these kind of moments all year, keeping these guys dialed in, keeping them playing direct hockey, keeping it simple, non-negotiable, so that the highs don't get too high, the lows don't get too low. And I think that's why Chief is your head coach here, Nick.
And Nuts, I don't want to get too far ahead of things. Like I think it's going to be a battle. I envision this series going 7 games. Do I see a pathway where Florida wins this series? Maybe. I don't know if you feel differently. I think the process is different for me, where even if they lose this series and who knows what happens the next couple games, I can walk away from this season being like, you know what? And we joked about John Tavares' comments last year about being close. I genuinely think this team is close. I think they're playing the right way to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The margin for error is razor thin. I think the bottom 6 has been a big story. The blue line much improved. Like they're playing that style that I think is conducive to success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And in recent memory, I think they've played these series and more so on talent alone. They find a way to win games, but for me, the eye test looks a lot different. The process, the body of work, shift by shift. I don't know if you feel the same way. Like this is me not conceding. I think it's going to be a hard goal the next 3 games if it goes to a game 7. But I feel really, really good about where this team's at right now, Huts.
I think there's too many dogs on this team now to just go away easy. Like, honestly, I just think there's too many. Like, even the play by Domi, right? Even what Matthew Nyes brings. Like, I feel like there's too many. Even like OEL, right? He has a couple tough penalties, but he had some fire last night, right? You could tell, and that's his former team, right? He's playing against that's a team he won a Stanley Cup with, and he doesn't give a shit, right? So I think there's that involved in it. The fact that like they're not going to go away easy, and you think Craig Berube's going to go in that room and let them just lay down and die. No. That's where I think there's value. And again, I believe, I got to stop saying I think. I got to work on that one. That's my crutch word for the day. But the thing here is, like, if they win this series, I honestly think whoever wins this series is going to the Stanley Cup final. Like, I've watched that Washington-Carolina series very closely. They're good teams, but they don't have the fire. I just don't think the goaltending is as good, and I don't think just overall the teams are as good. So I think in this next 2 out of 3 battle here for a chance to, punch your ticket to go to the Stanley Cup, that's close. I'm with you. This is a team that is very close. And if they lose, I just don't think it's going to be without a fight.
Knocking on the door. And I think another positive I'd grab is that 2 of the next 3 potentially would be on home ice at Scotiabank Arena in the final change. But I think it's abundantly clear why they lost game 4. And I think for the first time in the series, I can say the Panthers, definitively the better team. I will say 3 of the 4 games, the Leafs have had the better start. They didn't have a good start. They were up against it. They took 4 minor penalties in the first period. You not think Florida was going to make them pay at some point just after the short 5-on-3 ends they bury. But when you're doing that, you're you're putting a lot of stress on your PK guys. You're putting a lot of stress and wear and tear on your goaltender who kept them in the game, making some big saves in the first period. It's just not a good pathway to winning a hockey game, never mind preseason, regular season, the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I thought they were doomed, and the discipline just wasn't there. You can't take those type of penalties and expect to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, the rhythm gets out of the game too, right? Like you talk about guys that don't penalty kill or guys that do penalty kill. Now all of a sudden they're taxed higher. It like makes their offensive output, and it's hard to catch up. And I think that is something for this team to be smarter, right? And these were penalties, right? We could sit here and complain about reffing, whatever. These were penalties, and now you put your team in a tough situation. It's a 5-on-3. Yes, Nyes gets back, but it's late. And from there, they end up finding the back of the net. So, and even at that, when it was 1-0, it just kind of felt like they were never going to get there, right? It felt like when I looked at the clock, I think in the third period, there's about 13 minutes left. It felt like we were already in that window of like the goalie's got to get pulled almost. Like I felt like we were trying to get back in the game with no time. And because we just had seen nothing all game, and it felt like, Groundhog Day every single shift. They'd get the puck in. They wouldn't give up anything to get the puck out. So it's really hard to catch up when a team's playing that well.
Yeah, I'm the contrarian. I was like, they're one shot away. They may not have played their best game, but they're one shot away from tying this game. And it's not like they didn't have chances, man. And that hasn't been the story in past memories when they've played games like that. Like, I know a lot of people were trying to draw comparisons to that game against Ottawa, where it's like a no-show in the first round. I didn't feel that way. Like, I thought that was almost your prototypical Leafs game. And I do agree with you. They've been playing that style all season long. It's almost been preparation for this moment in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you knew you were going to get a strong effort from the Florida Panthers, but they had chances. I mean, the semi-breakaway there from Nylander, the good back check, Nyes' breakaway, Matthews' shot in the slot. So it's not like it was like an 0 for night. Still generating offense. Thought the Panthers did a really good job of keeping them to the outside, though.
But it just goes to show you when the goalie, like Bob, is dialed in, it just is defeating in that sense, right? Where you're not getting any freebies. Where if you look at games 1 and 2, this game could have easily been like a 3-2 win, but Bob was dialed back in again. So that it was tough. And I think there's lots to build off of. I think Joseph Woll, like that is something really big for him to build off of, in my opinion, going home. So there's so many takeaways from this game, and the chippiness I do like. It's one of those things, like they're going to do it to you. Like, you don't think these guys are going to take, look at Matthew Tkachuk at the end of game 1 when he's trying to take out Marner. Like, this is the way it goes. So you got to send a message that you are not going away easy.
Oh, that's the great thing about this is Panthers fans and hockey fans are all up in sorts about Max Domi's hit after the game. He got a 5-minute major for boarding or something like that. And it doesn't sound like anything is going to come from it. But like, yeah, where are you at with the Kulikov elbow there in game 4? And going back to the Bennett conversation and like all the late dirty hits like Tkachuk on Marner. I chalked it up to it being the Stanley Cup playoffs and pound of flesh late in the game. And yeah, it was a bit dirty, but to suggest that that is suspension worthy outside of the penalty that was handed out, I just think is ridiculous, especially when you've seen some of the hits in this series, Huts.
Yeah, it's been bad. And again, it's that point of the game where anything goes and it gets rough. And if the Four Nations taught us anything, this is what people want. This is what people want to see the edge of it. And what it other shows us is these guys care more than anything, right? There's times where we could be, mad about how much they make or their effort or where they're at. But right now they're showing it on their sleeve that they want to win and they're going to do whatever it takes to win. Guys like Domi, Nyes, these guys that are going to drag you into the fight are really, really big players toward this team and have that chip on their shoulder that are going to make guys come in and be dogs with them. And I think that's so important.
In support of Sick Kids, Eric Martin, thank you so much for the super chat. Scratch McMahon and put Robertson in the lineup. Putz, I don't know where you stand on that conversation. I know Bob McMahon is mired in a massive slump. I want to say 21, 22 games without a goal. Remember that hot streak during the season? And like, shit, this guy is the ingredient. He's the missing formula to success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I like the way, his heavy brand has been introduced to this series, but at some point in time, he has to score a goal. Are you at a point where you're ready to take Bob McMahon out in favor of Nick Robertson?
It's just a tough one to lose his size, because
yes.
Like Robertson comes in, is he going to create offense? He's even going to be in this situation. My worry is on the other side of the puck. If he comes in and he's given up a goal or he's given up chances because he's trying to cheat for offense, gets a bit worrisome. I think you need to simplify it, right? And even if you are fighting it, Bobby McMahon is a big body that can go to the net and, make stuff happen. So I'm a little worried about making that change right now.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't think they've played bad enough where you need to make a roster change. And that's the one thing I really like about Craig Berube. He doesn't overcoach or overreact to losses. We've seen that throughout the season. Whereas like I made the point in round 1, hey, I'd like to see Nick Robertson in for Max Pacioretty. What happens the next game? Pacioretty scores a series clinching goal, right? Just shows you that I'm okay in this podcast space, but I'm not a coach for a reason. And I feel like the demeanor and the calmness of Craig Berube carries over to the rest of the roster. But I'm with you. Considering the way the Panthers play, this is more so about the Panthers. I would be very leery of making a roster decision like that, or a smallish type player like Nick Robertson comes in. And this is more so about what I've seen from smaller type guys in the series. There's a guy who wears 16, Mitch Marner. I thought the physicality got the best of him last night. He just didn't have much cooking. Very defensive-minded game. There's not many opportunities. Very physical nature. I just don't think this type of series favors a smaller type player, Huts. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Just the space, the timing, the physicality, what the Panthers bring. And I remember Craig Berube with the St. Louis Blues when they won the Stanley Cup. They would always go in and out of the lineup. It was Robert Bertuzzo or Joel Edmondson. They would kind of go in and out depending on if they lost, just like a little adjustment. But those are like comparable players, right? Those are two big bodies that pick up space. We're now like the difference in taking Bobby McMahon and obviously putting Nick Robertson in is a big gap, right? I know there's the offensive upside to both, right? And obviously McMahon struggled. I think people have that potential right now with Robertson because they know when he does come in the lineup, he can generate offense. But the risk reward is pretty high because of his size and because of his defensive zone coverage against a team that is going to be really heavy on him.
In support of Sick Kids, we got another super chat here from Top Cheese, and cheese spelled CHZ. Scoring pace falls off. Can we be satisfied he has adapted his game to accommodate defense, elite puck handling, and decision-making, passing, etc.? I don't know who exactly he's talking about. Maybe Marner?
Bobby?
Maybe Bobby. Yeah, Bobby, you're right. It's probably Bobby. I know, but it comes a point in time where you just need that big goal. And it's not like McMahon's getting opportunities. That's what scares me, right? Like he's had a couple in the first 2 rounds, but he's not really like dominant.
Oh, Vic said Matthews. He's talking about Matthews.
Okay.
But I could say you could make the same comment about Bobby McMahon, that he's done the same thing as Matthews. His goal scoring's dried up, but he's defending and he's being physical and he's playing on that side of the puck. So you can't have everyone doing that. You need some secondary scoring. You need someone to chip in. You need Lawton to find the back of the net there. You can make an argument for a lot of guys. My risk is the defensive side of the puck. You need to be in a dogfight. This is not going to become like a East-West battle. Like you're not going to just all of a sudden become run and gun hockey here and it's going to open up. You need to defend your zone. And I like Bobby McMahon's size and speed in that regard in this series.
The second half of Top Cheese, his super chat. Are we considering Matthews may have a serious chronic injury? Wrist injury announced at end of last playoffs, goes to Germany for treatment. I don't know. I can't speculate. All I've been saying, I've been careful how I've analyzed Matthews' game just because we have no clue what's going on. He could be at 60%. It's been quite definitive and clear in my world. Again, I'm Dr. Nick Riviera from The Simpsons. I don't know anything, dude. But, I mean, he missed the morning skate earlier on in round one, missed the morning skate yesterday. There is something going on there. And just, you're the goalie. You're the guy who's watched Austin Matthews dominate the NHL since pretty much coming in, scoring 4 goals in his first game against the Ottawa Senators. There's just something off. Defensively, you can do your thing. I think he's been really, really good on Barkov and guys like I think that's a story not being talked about enough is the job Toronto's done on Barkov. Again, Matthew Tkachuk's a guy who's probably nowhere close to full health, not really having an impact offensively in this series. But for as much conversation as we could make about the core four, and I'm not trying to spin it, the Leafs have done a really good job defensively and some of the big boys in the Panthers too.
Yeah, they have. And they're going to have to continually do that. So that's the important side of it is where do you overextend to try to create offense, right? And I think it starts with the special teams game and the fact of the matter, you can circle back to those 4 penalties early, just like too many penalties. Play 5-on-5 hockey and chip away at them, right? It's not just going to happen overnight or like on a loose play. They play too well as a team. So I think the Leafs are matching that right now. But that being said, there's definitely something going on with Matthews. And I circle back to that list of Ryan and anyone who's seen it on that penalty. I kind of recorded it and watched it again. When he gets up, it's like the way he holds his arm and the way he kind of like, just doesn't look like a guy that's healthy to me from what I've seen. And I just don't see him creating any chances. He's usually so dangerous from like off angles, right? Like how many times have we saw him shoot from like the half wall down low on the goal line? And just, if he's not scoring, he's creating off that and it's gone. It's not from his game. And I think there's the fact of the matter is playoff hockey and the Florida Panthers defend very hard, but it's not the Austin Matthews we're used to seeing offensively. That's for sure.
That's exactly it. In support of Sick Kids, another super chat here via Michael. Every host from TV program TSN Sports Center podcast are saying the Leafs are finished in 6 or 7 games. 90% Florida win. Do you guys agree? Well, firstly, great statistical information on that front. I should preface by saying I had Florida winning this series. Wouldn't be shocked if they win this series. Having said that, I expect a bounce back. Not to steal a hot take from producer Vic, but if the Maple Leafs don't win Game 5, I think they're done. They need to win Game 5. There needs to be a response on Wednesday night, Huts.
Yeah, I think that's a great take by Vic. He's the brains of the operation.
That's my take. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought Vic said it too.
I don't want to steal his spotlight. He's got a lot of hot takes, but that's my hot take.
I'm with you. I think it is a response. Again, I don't want to sell the team totally down the river because I think they're going to play desperate hockey, even if they were to lose Game 5. But it's just a big mountain to climb with the demons they have in their closet, right? There's a lot of skeletons that are going to kill this team and creep in. You need a big game. Like you need like the Matthews game or like the Marner game. Like you need a game right now. This is the time of year where it's like you just have to have someone who makes a play. And like you look at Mikko Rantanen, what he's doing in Dallas, and you look at all these teams that are getting big performances from players in big moments, and they need it now more than ever in this home game. So it's going to be a dogfight. But I'm a big believer, Nick, in the fact that Craig Berube has built this foundation throughout the whole season, right? And we're not just trying to turn that switch on. They've been in these dogfight games for a while now.
Huts, I want to get to the Mitch Marner conversation because I truly feel the next few games could be a legacy defying moment for the big guys on the Maple Leafs. Like it's either put up or shut up time, and maybe you go your separate locations, separate routes. But they just need more from Marner. I just don't think he did much to warrant giving him Mikko Rantanen money. Like how many times in the Stanley Cup playoffs have we seen versions of that where it's like you're just not generating? Is he going to be able to push through in this series is a serious question. And you're going to see the stats over the next couple days, game 5, game 6, game 7. It really, really dries up. And how many times we talked about it over the course of this season, you need to rise up. Like there's no more conversations to be had, in my opinion.
No, I agree. At this point, it's put up or shut up, I think, for Mitch Marner and the way that he's played and the way that he's been through. And I know a lot of people took away from his Four Nations, performance, and he played well and made the big play. But like it's a different landscape. The NHL playoffs is not the Four Nations Cup. It's not best on best. And you can pass whatever you say. Like it's not. This is a dogfight. It's a grind. It's a war of attrition. And I just think at times he disappears. It's that perimeter game and software game. And yes, it's very aesthetically pleasing when he is his edge work and his puck movement and he's floating and he's moving and all this stuff. But the game is so tight and there's no space. It's got to be hard lines. And that's why Matthew Knies has been so successful because he plays in that hard area all the time. So Mitch Marner needs to do something. He needs to create something because that being said, man, how many years can you're going to pay this guy that kind of money knowing he's not going to get it done in the big stage?
And to that point, I just don't think we've seen enough to warrant and go out on a limb and be like, you have to pay this guy. Like, I think a lot of us Leafs fans are waiting to see what happens in the Stanley Cup playoffs under Craig Berube. There's been some moments, don't get me wrong, but I think you make a great point in bringing up a guy like Matthew Knies, regardless of the game, finds a way to make a difference or try to make a difference. Even last night, the physicality, I think he went in 1-on-4 on a PK, assignment and just comes out with the puck. Like it's little things like that. And I do truly feel like you can wrap in Austin Matthews into the conversation. You guys make the most money. And to your point, the Rantanen conversation will come up. There just needs to be that signature outing. We have seen it from Willie Nylander a couple times here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Another guy would loop into the conversation every game. It seems like he's done something, sway something in Toronto's direction. John Tavares, the former captain, I think has been really good. Pound for pound, I think Tavares and Knies have been Toronto's top forwards outside of William Nylander, but he's even been quiet the last couple games. But for Marner and Matthews, there's a reason, again, you make that money. They need that signature performance. I don't care who it's from. Got to have a multi-point night where it's like, we're winning this game. I'm grabbing this team. I'm putting them on my shoulder. We're winning this hockey game. And sadly, you just don't get that sense, that feel it's around the corner. I know a lot of people going into the game yesterday here in Florida suggested it was going to be like Matthews' breakout game. Like I don't see anything in the shift by shift basis where it's like, yeah, these guys are ready to pop off. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I just don't feel like at any point right now he even has it in him. Like Matthews and Marner. Like they just don't, like they're so far gone, like on the outside of that offensive upside danger. Like where William Nylander, I don't feel that way at all. Like William Nylander, I feel like at any point, he almost blew that game open in overtime and made it a 3-0 series lead. He's a difference maker. He plays when his feet are moving. Matthew Knies, I don't feel that way about it all. And again, Tavares is one of those players where he takes a lot of shit, honestly, like for how good he's been at his age, but he is a tight area guy. He's a guy that can work tight areas, that can protect the puck battle. And again, that's a playoff style that you need. So that being said, I'm with you, man. I just don't really feel like we're going to be sitting here after game 5 and be like, holy shit, Marner just had 2 and 1 and he did this, he did that. It just seems like you can just take him out of the play way too easy this time of year.
By the way, we got something across the wire, involves Max Domi, not going to be suspended, but slapped with a $5,000 fine. We were talking about it yesterday for the boarding on Alexander Barkov, the drive home from the arena last night. I'm like, they're giving him a fine, and that's okay. And how many times this guy been fined in his career? But nothing to see here. A $5,000 fine for Max Domi. Are you surprised, Tuts?
No, the fine makes sense. No suspension. That's all.
You're fine with the fine?
Yeah, I'm fine with the fine. I think that's okay. Again, because I don't think there's a place for that, like in the sense of I understand where it's coming from, but he does bury Barkov from behind. It's a dangerous hit, right? If we're sitting here and someone just did that to Marner, Matthews, Nylander, we're up in arms too. But again, I think no suspension makes sense. $5,000, it's going to come right out of the slush fund. The boys, how much money they got in their team fund? They'll be like, boys, we got it. $5,000. These guys are so rich, Nick. It don't matter.
Yeah, it's still unfortunate Joe Bowen and Jim Ralph can't travel and call games on the road, but a story for a different day.
It's nuts.
It feels like every game the Florida Panthers get away with things. And again, I've never been Mr. Ref guy the way I have in this series, but there's an elbow every game. And watch closely next game, the amount of picks, man. The league does not call picks against the Panthers either. It drives me insane.
Yeah, and we talked about that, though. And that's the art of the Panthers, too, though, right? Like, it's infuriating at times, but, like, if you're a Panthers fan, you have to love it. Like, they drag you down in the mud, and that's where you need the guys, like, to keep it going in the other direction, right? You can't give into it. It's got to just be hard. It's got to be – this is that time of year where you need to just get down in the mud and build through it and find ways to do it, but not taking dumb penalties. That's what the killer is for me, where you can't get frustrated. You have to control, and I thought OEL was frustrated. OEL got put on top of wall there in front of the net. Sam Bennett, in that front play, kind of hit him. He landed on top of wall, and it was the same shift he went up ice, and that's when he interfered with Rodriguez for no apparent reason. Yes, you got to get your licks in. I played with Erod. I wouldn't mind hitting him too once in a while. But that being said, that's a dumb penalty to take. It's a pointless penalty, and there's 2 minutes off the clock that you just can't find a way to create more offense, and the game gets away from you because the time starts ticking, especially when you're behind.
Historically, the officiating, in my opinion, has changed later on in the series, especially as the Stanley Cup playoffs continue and you get later and later. And I just wonder from that perspective, because, man, lo and behold, just similar to round one, pretty much even keel when it comes to power plays in the series. I believe the Maple Leafs had 15 power plays, the Panthers at 14. It's kind of amazing how it works out every year in most series, and there's not a big discrepancy. But nevertheless, I think there'll be less physicality moving forward. I think it's going to be more ground and pound and just direct hockey. I think that's got to be the key for the Maple Leafs. Like, I know it's cliche to talk about. I think the starts are everything to a hockey game, at least in this series. From the Maple Leafs side of things, because they are the underdog, because they're playing a team with an identity the way they do that's so heavy in the Florida Panthers. If you have a good start in Game 5, man, put yourself in a position to be leading that game, because Florida's sort of the same way. Like, I think a lot of what Toronto has done this season has been very Florida Panther hockey. The Panthers have now won 24 straight playoff games when leading through 2 periods. Like, think about that, Huts.
Yeah, it's good. And again, reverting back to defense and the way they defend, the way they defend lines, the way they defend the front of the net, it's going to be important, right? But it feels right now that we're kind of at that point where, remember early in the season, we saw a lot of this where Joseph Wall was very, very good. Anthony Stolarz was very, very good. And it felt like the games were a bit lopsided, but they were still trying to find a way to create, a little bit of offense and win those 2-1 close games. And it feels like that's the game we're going to need here at home. Like, we're going to need one of those ones where we hold the wall, defend, find a way to get a power play goal, but play smart. Because, again, I just feel like the way this Florida team is structured and the way they play, it's going to be really, really hard to get to 3-4 goals in the next few games here with the way Bobrovsky looks.
Got a couple super chats to get to here in support of Sick Kids. Top Cheese, again, thank you so much. Huge shout out to Tree for trying to trade Mitch Marner for Mikko Rantanen. I'd love a 30 for 30 on that someday. And Maxentius Decimus, one of our faves in the chat. Marner is worth nowhere near what Rantanen makes. Yeah, it's a tough case for me. And I wonder if we're witnessing firsthand the final few games of Mitch Marner as a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Yeah, it could be, right? And again, Mikko Rantanen, Stanley Cup champion. He gets moved, and we were quick to judge him when he was in Carolina. We were quick to be like, well, look, he's nothing without Nathan McKinnon. But like, again, then you start to put the human side into it, right? The guy played in the Four Nations Cup. He just had to change where he's been his whole career. And then he gets out of there, and he's the Conn Smythe winner today, right? If the Stanley Cup playoffs ended, he's been the biggest difference maker in the playoffs by far. I think I was a stat. It was 14 of the last 15 goals he's been a part of. That's insane. That is insane to think about. 14 of the last 15 goals for the Dallas Stars that he's been a part of. And you can't even put him in the same category as Mitch Marner, because this is the biggest game there is. He's in a game 7 against Colorado Avalanche's former team, and he gets 3 goals in the third period. We're dying for Mitch to get a goal, to get a couple shots on goal, create something. So they're not even in the same category, in my opinion.
Look, Huts, I mean, I truly feel like the last 5 to 6 weeks has been a tough time for the calculator community. I really do. And I'm not trying to joke about this, but I think it's been very eye-opening how you find success, how you're supposed to play and find success in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And it's a heavy brand. Like this loop-de-loop perimeter shit, it just doesn't work. And last night was another prime example. You could have all the skill in the world. Mitch Marner is a phenomenal player. Finally hits 100 points this year. He's going to get paid a lot of money, but you got to find a way to enhance your game. The versatility's got to be there. You've got to find a way to push through. And I think, to me at least, it's proven that type of player just can't really find the consistency in the Stanley Cup playoffs the way others can. Mikko Rantanen's a perfect example. What's the difference with him? He's a big body. He plays physical, not afraid to go to the dirty areas. It's just a different game in the playoffs. And not to harp on the previous administration, I know I do that a lot, but they weren't serious with the rosters they put together about being successful in the playoffs. They just weren't, because in one fell swoop in a couple years under a tree here, just the blue line alone, the way they move the puck, it's just a lot of it. It's a different brand, man. And it's just proving to me, at least, that that's how you're going to find success in the playoffs.
You are going to, right? And I think there's been a template for a few years now of different players and different teams, the way they're structured with size on the back end. And when we think about size on the back end, this is always something that I find very interesting. We want like physicality. Like, you don't need to throw body checks though. Like, you don't need to you need to take up space and have a stick or a leg, or just make it hard in the defensive zone. And you look at back ends, and this is where they're at now. That being said, everybody's trying to build a back end like Vegas had when they won, right? Big
Exactly.
bodies that can move, that can do this. So then you think about, how do you counteract that with your offense? You need to have size to get to the hard areas. Like, how are you getting to the hard areas if you're a smaller finesse guy that works on angles and trying to, figure skate your way through? So I find that where you really start to notice it. I think that is part of the struggle in the NHL, in my opinion, too, in the sense of, like, you need to be built a certain way and be big enough and talented enough to win in the regular season, but then be able to manipulate it a bit when you get in there, because things are a little tighter. There's more interference. It's a harder game come playoff time. So I think the Leafs have the right build, but when one of your guys that's making a ton of money is such a perimeter guy, it really hurts your lineup in this time of year.
I want to give a shout out as well to Simone Benoit. It's just like a bone-crushing, bone-rattling hit like once per game, and he's just playing so well. He's a perfect example of, you need players to step up in the Stanley Cup playoffs and elevate. And just, I think that's a major takeaway for me, is Craig Berube's rolling 4 lines. He's rolling all 3 D pairings, and in turn, that should help the rest of the roster stay fresh shift by shift. But Benoit, for me, is maybe the biggest standout of the postseason, showing that, hey, that brand, that style can bring you success. He's become very dependent. I think Craig Berube trusts the guy, and it's been awesome to see, honestly. For a guy a couple years back was like a 7th guy on the blue line for the Anaheim Ducks, a nice little find, and he's really, really grown on me. Just the confidence, even skating the puck up the ice.
Yeah, like, so much confidence, and I love it. He's a big body. He's played well, and it's been a good story too, right? We tend to enjoy those ones, right? A guy that's kind of counted out, not necessarily counted out, but like, I feel like he's playing above his potential, or is it just the fact that he's evolved too, right? That's one thing. I think even for my career, you get pegged, right? When you're coming in, it's like, well,
yeah,
this is where you are. And then it's like, well, no, you don't have to be that. Like, I'm not going to let that define me. You're going to put in so much extra work and find ways to evolve. And for me, that was always the take, right? I was this guy that was undrafted. I was kind of just a kind of a stopgap, right? Teams would give me a chance, maybe as number 3, because the next guy was coming. I would help out. And then for me, I always had that personal vision of what I could do, and you keep working at it. And I think Benoit is a very similar fate, right? He's played so well, and now he's in a team where he's loved, and it's really embraced, and it's really fun to watch his growth here this year.
In support of Sick Kids, one final super chat to get to here. Deadly Dad Gaming, thank you so much for the super chat. If Marner and Matthews can't get it done this series, I think we've seen the end of Eminem. The telling sign for me was Game 4 last night, where the physicality picked up and Marner wilted again. Let's see how Game 5 and 6 go. I couldn't agree more. Again, there's been so many examples of this in the Stanley Cup playoffs. it's not the first time I've seen that, where I'm at a point where I don't even comment anymore. It's like, it's expected. So either put up or shut up. Are you guys going to rise up, Matthews and Marner? Are you going to rise up in game 5, 6, and 7 of this series? You're going to grab this series by the balls and say, hey, we're not losing? Are you going to go full Mikko Rantanen, and you're going to go full McKinnon, McDavid, Draisaitl, or again, are you going to wilt? That's the question for me.
Yeah, and that's like, I feel like his super chat is bang on.
Yep.
It is what it is, and again, like you said, we're so accepting of it. It's like we just know that's just who he is. Fuck, this pisses me off, man. I just want them to like get over the hump. I can't wait for game 5. I hope that this is we have guys that are going to will this over the line, right? Because this is going to be the game where this is the swing game in the series, in my opinion. Even if it goes 7, I think game 5 is going to be the one you might look back at and be like, that made the series for either team.
Can't forget either. The road team is yet to win through 4 games. And the moment I think a road team wins in the series, it's over. I just have that feel. You need to win game 5, Huts. Yeah,
you need to. And again, I'm confident that Joseph Woll is going to be good again. You look at his track record in playoff in big games, right? We could look at that black cloud about getting hurt last year in game 7. But before that, he was very good in tough games, getting thrown into it. And then the year before against Florida, he was very good. Even that OT game, that the famous photo there where Gudas is yelling in his face. So, he was really good in that game too. I was actually in attendance for that one. So that being said, he's going to be comfy. He's going to be settled in. Now it's going to be dogs. You got to just outwill them in game 5.
I love the optimism, and historically, you're right. The sample size is small, but as series continue and get going, Woll gets better and better. And yeah, that's the major positive and takeaway, I think, from a Leafs perspective. Joseph Woll was incredible stuff in game 4. And right now, there's not much conversation about Anthony Stolarz. I don't even think he's going to be an option for the rest of the series. They haven't ruled him out just yet. But again, have to feel really, really good about Joseph Woll, where his game's at, considering where he started earlier on in the series. Want to get into the action for Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you. From game props, player props, totals, and the money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in the game. An official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit ConnexOntario.ca. So the Stanley Cup playoffs continue tonight, Huts. Anything you're looking at specifically? We got the Hurricanes, home of the Washington Capitals. Carolina up 2-1 in that series. And following that crazy, chaotic finish in Edmonton Saturday night, the Oilers try to grab a 3-1 series stranglehold when they host the Vegas Golden Knights here.
Yeah, I like the Oilers tonight. Again, Leon, obviously a tough play. Tips that one in his own net, which is there's mistakes that go on, but I just feel like those guys bounce back tonight. Those guys are too good. And Aiden Hill has been too suspect, in my opinion. I think Skinner was decent, not great, but that's what we've come to see. Then the other one I like, Carolina looked real good the other night, like really good. And I think there'll be a pushback, but I like Carolina push this one over the top here tonight.
All right, Huts, excellent job. Thank you so much for this, and we'll reconvene down the road. Okay, bud?
Thanks, buddy. Safe travels, my man.
Thank you. Once again, and lastly, thank you again to the Florida Panthers for the hospitality the last couple of days. It kind of stung and sucked that the Leafs couldn't pick up one win here in Florida, but nevertheless, again, had to thank the Panthers organization for hosting us at Amarant Bank Arena. A lot of fun. Great opportunity for the brand and all of us here over at the Leafs Nation. So really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys have been great all postseason long. Let's keep things going here. Again, nationgear.ca, where you can pick up your Now We Go t-shirt. We're going to be at Greta Bar on Wednesday. So book your tables right now, either at the Open Table app or at the Greta Bar website. So make sure you do that. We'll be jam-packed Wednesday for Game 5. And again, the extra day off here at the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review while you do that. And don't forget to check out the LeafsNation.com. Thank you once again. And lastly, to producer Vic for his great hard work behind the scenes here in Florida, making things very effortless on my part, just to host this podcast. So really, really appreciate that. For Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. Jay Roseau back in the mix on Tuesday. Talk then. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Roseau. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.